everyone, welcome to Botany Insider, and from this lecture we are starting off Unit 12, that is Applied Biology. I'll try to finish off the complete unit in the subsequent videos, so we'll be dealing with each topic in every video. So the first topic that we are dealing in Unit 12 is about the microbial fermentation. So it is the first bullet point when you will look at the syllabus. This is the first bullet point of Unit 12. So let us understand about that what is fermentation and what are the subsequent types that we have to discuss in this particular topic. So first of all, let us discuss about that what is fermentation, and then we would be discussing the further topics. So fermentation word is derived from a Latin word, and the word is fever, which means to ferment. So it is derived from a Latin word which means to ferment. And what is fermentation? So fermentation is a process that helps to break down the large organic molecules via the action of the microorganisms into the simpler ones. That is, consider we have this larger molecule. This is an organic molecule that we are focusing upon. And when this organic molecule is acted upon by the help of the microorganisms, then it leads to the breakdown of this organic molecule into the smaller sized particle. So this particular action, in simple words, is known as fermentation. And the most common example of fermentation is that the yeast enzyme converts the sugar and the starches into the alcohol, while the proteins are converted to the peptides or the amino acids. So among the bacteria associated with the fermented foods and the alcoholic beverages, the lactic acid bacteria, that is LAB, mostly the species of Enterococcus and the Lactobacillus, Lactococcus, and the other type of the species, they are widely present in the fermented foods and the beverages. So among the bacteria, these are the common type of the bacteria that are associated with fermentation on a regular basis. So the fermentation process is actually divided into many subtypes. So we have the renewable resource, which because of the pre-treatment gets converted into the fermentable carbohydrates. Then the actual fermentation occurs, and then there occurs the conversion of the fermentable carbohydrates into the fermentation broth, and now this fermentation broth gets converted into the lactic acid, which is the end result, or which is the small molecule that we are focusing upon, or which is the actual result of the fermentation that we are actually taking place in this particular type. So the renewable source can also be converted directly into the fermentation broth by the help of simultaneous saccharification and the fermentation. So fermentation is a enzymatic decomposition and the utilization of the foodstuffs, particularly the carbohydrates, by the microbes. So we can say that fermentation, it is an enzymatic decomposition. Enzymatic, why? Because there occurs the usage of the enzymes. And decomposition, why? Because decomposition is a common term or common scientific term that is given to the process in which there occurs the conversion of large sized molecule into the smaller sized molecule. So we can call the fermentation as a enzymatic decomposition and the utilization of the foodstuffs, particularly the carbohydrates, by the help of the microbes. So in fermentation, the main role is played actually by the microbes. The fermentation takes place throughout the gastrointestinal tract of all the animals, but the intensity of the fermentation depends upon the microbe number, which is generally highest in a larger bowl. So talking about the byproducts of the fermentation, so the byproducts excreted from the cell in the form of the substances, these are the common byproducts of the fermentation. The first one is the alcohol, then we have lactic acid and also the acetone. controlled environment for the growth of the microorganisms is actually provided by the bioreactors. So what are bioreactors? So in simple words, we could say that bioreactors are a type of technical instrument that is used in order to provide controlled environment for the growth of the microorganisms. Why? Because as we have discussed in the microbial physiology lecture, that microbes require a particular environment, a particular area where they could have the maximum growth of themselves. So that controlled environment is actually provided by the help of the bioreactors, and these bioreactors are mainly useful in the industrial area where the microorganisms growth is done at a very large scale, or it is done at the commercial level. Hence the bioreactors play important role there in order to provide controlled environment for the growth of the microorganisms. The overview of the fermenter design and the construction. So as you can see, this is how a typical bioreactor looks like. You need not to go into the detail of this, just have an overview of what is a bioreactor. So there are many types of bioreactors available. The most common examples are fluidized bed bioreactor, then we have loop or air fill bioreactor, we also have membrane bioreactor, and the last one is the photobioreactor. Make sure you remember about the names of this, so that if in examination you come across any question related to that, you at least have some knowledge about that what is a bioreactor. So talking about the microbial metabolism, so microbes used in the fermentation have to grow and reproduce rapidly to produce the metabolites. So when we are fermenting any food, or when we are fermenting any organic molecule, we are using microbes, and the microbes, in order to facilitate the fermentation, they need to grow and reproduce very rapidly. And why they need to grow and reproduce very rapidly? In order to produce the metabolites. And what are the metabolites that we have studied, or what are the common metabolites that are actually formed? The first one was the acetone, then we had lactic acid, etc. So this process of the microbes to grow and reproduce very rapidly is related to the metabolism. So this is the microbial metabolism, and the microbial metabolism actually includes two processes. The first one is the catabolism, and the second one is the anabolism. Catabolism is a energy producing process, and anabolism is energy consuming process. So catabolism is actually the breakdown of the larger complex molecule into the smaller forms, and anabolism is an opposite process in which we stick together, or we convert the smaller sized molecule into a one larger molecule. Catabolism is because converting the larger molecule into the smaller molecules, hence it is releasing or producing energy. But in anabolism, as the smaller molecules are packed together into a larger molecule, there occurs energy consumption in this type of anabolism process. So talking about the microbial growth, so microbial growth, we have already discussed about this in the microbial physiology lecture also. So this will serve as a revision for you all. So on the x-axis we have the time, and on the y-axis we have the cell concentration. So when we put any microbial population into the area where it can grow, so there occurs mainly four important phases. The first one is the lag phase, then we have the growth phase, the third one is the stationary phase, and the fourth one is the decline phase. The lag phase is the one where there occurs the adjustment to a new environment, and after the microbe have adjusted to the new environment, there occurs the rapid growth, or there occurs the growth phase of the microbes, where the cell concentration rapidly increases with time, and after the concentration of the nutrients that are actually required for the microbe to grow in that particular area comes to a point that the microbes cannot grow further, but they can have a stationary phase, they can have a stationary area of settlement. So there occurs a stationary phase where the microbes concentration does not grow but it remains stationary. So this phase is the stationary phase, and when there occurs a time that all the resources are now complete or all the resources have now been used up by the microbe, there starts to occur the death phase where the microbe starts to decline, where the population starts to decline because of the lack of resources, and the microbe starts to die off in that particular environment. So these are the four important phases that we have to keep in mind, and in addition to these four phases, we also have the acceleration phase, which is a transition between the lag phase and the growth phase, and we also have the decline phase, which is a transition between the growth phase and the stationary phase. So make sure you remember about this term because many questions have been framed from this area. So let's talk about the methods to control the microbial growth. So there are various methods by which we could control the microbial growth. The first one are the physical methods, and we also have the chemical methods. So let's look at the various physical and the chemical methods in brief. So these are the physical methods to control the microbial population. The first one is the usage of heat, and in heat we have three subtypes or three sub-physical methods. The first one is usage of moist heat, then we have the pasteurization method, and we also have the dry heat concept. In case of moist heat, we can either do the boiling or the flowing, and also in addition to the first one, we can also have the autoclaving method performed. In case of both the boiling and the autoclaving, the mechanism of action is the denaturization or the denaturation of the microbes. And what are the important characteristics from the same? So in boiling, it kills the vegetative bacterial and the fungal pathogens and the many viruses within 10 minutes, less effective on the endospores, and they are preferably used for the dishes, basins, pitchers and various equipments. In case of autoclaving, there also occurs the mechanism of action as denaturation. It is a very effective method of sterilization at about 15 psi of pressure, 121 degrees. All the vegetative cells and their endospores are killed in about 15 minutes, and it is preferably used for the microbiological media, for the solutions, linens, utensils and for others also. Talking about the pasteurization, so it is also a case of denaturization mechanism of action. In this, there occurs the heat treatment for the milk, and it is preferably used for the milk, cream and certain alcoholic beverages like wine and beer. Talking about the dry weight, we have three subtypes. The first one is the dry flaming, then we have inclination, and the last one is the hot air sterilization. In case of direct flaming, we have the mechanism of action as the burning contaminants to the ashes. It is a very effective method of sterilization, and it is preferably used for the inoculating loops. Talking about inclination, it is the method in which we have actually burning down to the ashes. It is also a very effective method of sterilization, and it is preferably used for the paper cups, contaminated dressings, other things also. The third one is the hot sterilization. In this, there occurs the oxidation mechanism. It is also a very effective method of sterilization, but here there are some special requirements. That is, it requires temperature to 170 degrees Celsius for about 2 hours, and it is preferably used for the empty glasswares, instruments, needle and the glass syringes. Then we have the next method as the filtration. After that we have the cold method treatment, in which we could either refrigerate or we could either have the deep freezing. In all of these processes, what is actually happening is we are using some way or the other in order to control the microbial growth, or in other words we could say we are actually working out a method in which we could elongate the shell life of particular resources. So you can go through this complete list very nicely, because questions can be framed from this area in part B. So let's discuss about few of the chemical agents that are being used to control the microbial growth. So talking about chemical agents, we can use phenols and the phenolics, we can use halogens, alcohols, heavy metals and their compounds. So in case of the phenols and the phenolics, if we are using the phenol, it is rarely used and it is majorly used for the disruption of the plasma membrane, denaturation and the inactivations of the enzymes. Talking about the characteristics of the phenol being used as a chemical agent for controlling the microbial growth, seldom used as a disinfectant or an antiseptic because of its irritating qualities and disagreeable odor. Then we have phenolics being used as a chemical agent, which is also used for disruption of the plasma membrane, for the denaturation and also for the inactivation of enzymes, as in the case of the phenols. It is preferably used for environmental surfaces, instruments, skin surfaces and the mucosal membranes. The characteristic holds are, the first one is that the derivatives of the phenol that are reactive even in the presence of the organic material. Example includes O-phenol, phenol and hexachlorophenol. Then we have chlorohexidine, which is used for the disruption of the plasma membrane. We have the main characteristic as the bactericidal to the gram positive and the gram negative, non-toxic and also persistent. Talking about the alcohols, halogens and the heavy metals and the other compounds, you can go through this complete list one by one. You need to just go through this list once and you're good to go for the question. You need not to mug up, but make sure you remember about the important characteristic points. Like for the alcohols, it have the mechanism of action as the denaturation and the lipid dissolution, and it is having the characteristic of bactericidal and fungicidal, but not effective against the endospores or the non-enveloped virus. Commonly used for alcohols are ethanols and the propanols. So commonly we are using ethanol and the propanol as the chemical agents under the category of alcohol. When we look into the heavy metals, so we are mainly using mercury and the silver as the heavy metals being the chemical agents for controlling the microbial growth. Talking about the halogens also, so we are using mainly iodine and chlorine for the controlling of the microbial growth. So with this we are done with the topic of the microbial fermentation in detail. I have tried to cover each and every point possible for this particular topic. So I hope this video was helpful for you, and if you like this video, please do like, share it with your friends and please subscribe to my channel. And also I'll be coming up very soon with more topics of unit 12 as well. So thank you so much for watching and keep learning.